How did Israel come into existence? Why does the Israel-Palestine conflict persist after so many years? How did historical decisions shape the Israel-Palestine conflict we see today? To truly understand the Israel-Palestine conflict, let's dive deep into its historical roots and key decisions. The Israel-Palestine conflict dates back to the late 19th century when Palestine was under Ottoman control. In 1882, Palestine had a population of about 600,000. Jews made up less than 5%, Christians 10%, and Muslims 85%. Jerusalem, the heart of three major religions, was a unique place where Muslims, Orthodox Jews, and Christians lived side by side. Their holy sites were scattered within a few hundred square meters. On November 2, 1917, the British issued the Balfour Declaration, pledging to establish a homeland for the Jewish people in Palestine. Britain aimed to gain Jewish support for the Allied cause during World War I and protect its interests, including the Suez Canal and Iraqi oil fields, by settling a pro-British Jewish population in Palestine. British forces, led by General Edmund Allenby, defeated the Ottoman forces on December 11, 1917. The first Zionist Commission, initiated by the British government, arrived in Palestine in 1918 to organize the Jewish population and establish a Jewish university. In 1921, the Zionist Commission transformed into the Jewish Agency for Palestine, becoming an external arm for Jewish immigrants. From 1882 to 1928, around 190,000 Jewish migrants arrived from Europe and the Soviet Union, escaping anti-Semitism. Each year, thousands landed in the Promised Land, joining a small community that had never left the region. Over time, Jewish settlers acquired land, and by 1935, Jews made up 30% of the population, creating dozens of villages along the coast and in the north. Tel Aviv, a Jewish metropolis of 130,000 inhabitants, emerged in less than 20 years, gradually changing the face of Palestine. In 1936, faced with the arrival of Jewish migrants from Europe and the Soviet Union, Palestinian Arabs revolted, leading to the Great Arab Revolt. It took the British Army 2 years to suppress the uprising. Between 1932 and 1939, 247,000 Jews arrived in Palestine, fleeing Nazi persecution, constituting 46% of Jewish immigrants from Europe. In the spring of 1939, the situation changed abruptly for the Zionists. To secure Arab support against Hitler, the British decided to stop supporting Zionism, limiting Jewish entry visas and land purchases. This was catastrophic for Zionists who intended to emigrate millions of Jews from Europe before the war. Their leader in Palestine, David Ben-Gurion, chose to use force. Restrictions on Jewish arrivals and land ownership were unbearable for Zionist activists. In Palestine, Jewish armed groups launched a campaign of terror, aiming to subdue the British and drive them out. From 1944 to 1948, these groups attacked British police and government targets in response to immigration restrictions. The prolonged conflict, coupled with political challenges, military engagements, and economic strain after World War II, led to British fatigue. These actions, along with other factors, turned British public opinion against their deployment in Palestine. On November 29, 1947, the United Nations adopted Resolution 181, aiming to divide the British Mandate of Palestine into Arab and Jewish states. The Zionists accepted the division, but all Arab countries voted against it. Following the UN resolution, civil war broke out, involving clashes between Jewish and Arab communities in Palestine. The British, tasked with maintaining order, organized their withdrawal and intervened only occasionally. Thousands of Palestinians and Israelis engaged in guerrilla-style fighting, marked by ambushes, raids, and small-scale skirmishes. The second and final phase of the Arab Zionist civil war in Mandatory Palestine began with the Battle of Mishmar Hamek on April 4, 1948. The Arab Liberation Army, led by Fawzi al-Qawuqji, attacked Jewish positions, igniting widespread conflict. The Haganah, better organized than the Arab forces, gained the upper hand within weeks. In the conquered cities, fear spread, prompting many to consider fleeing. On April 9th, Jewish extremists massacred nearly 200 Arab villagers, including children, in Deir Yassin, intensifying these fears. The 10-day battle resulted in approximately 700,000 Palestinian Arabs, about half of the population, being expelled or fleeing, and 400 to 600 villages being destroyed or captured. The Arab Liberation Army was defeated, and the Haganah emerged victorious, later becoming the IDF. On May 14, 1948, British Governor Alan Cunningham departed Palestine, ending 3 decades of British presence. 6 hours later, Zionist leader David Ben-Gurion declared Israel's independence in Tel Aviv. The new state's population was 806,000. The Jewish population had increased from 5% in 1882 to 81% in 1948, while Palestinian Arabs had decreased from 85% to 19%. This mass displacement, known as the Nakba, led to a refugee crisis in the Middle East and will trigger numerous conflicts due to the resulting demographic changes. This video covered Israel's creation and its impact on Palestinians. Next, we'll dive into the Arab-Israeli wars and their profound effects. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated.